Record now. So now we're recording. All right. Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Tara Lynn, and I am here with my colleague, Jeremy Fox from Fox EMDR, who I think has like the most badass name ever for a therapist. So Jeremy, can you do us a favor and tell us a little bit about you?
Yes, absolutely. And thank you. I thought my name lent itself to marketing pretty well also.
It does.
So I graduated in 2013 with my master's degree in mental health therapy from Colorado Christian University. And before that, I got my bachelor's from CU Denver, go Buffs. So, and after that, I went into working in community mental health. Okay. So in 2014, I started working at an agency here in Colorado called All Health Network. And I had the privilege of getting a mentor here who was really excited about trauma work. And she's since moved on. But so I got a real passion for working in trauma-informed modalities.
Nice. Yeah. And is that the person that introduced you to EMDR?
Yeah. So one of my real guiding inspirations is Julie Green from I think it's the Awake Mind Institute is the name of her group, but she's retired. But so I was really blessed to get in when I did with her because she trained me, and because you have to do the basic training, level 1 and level 2. So her passion was really palpable, and it rubbed off on me for sure.
It's so funny because as a therapist myself, I know the importance of finding a really good supervisor.
Yeah.
That can really motivate you and teach you new things and allow you to think outside the box is pretty powerful and incredible. And that's where, for me, I love EMDR as well, which is another reason why I wanted to talk to you, because I know you love it too. And I think my clients are like, all you do is talk about EMDR. And I'm like, not just me, Jeremy does too.
Yeah. Use me as an excuse there. That's perfect.
Exactly. So
well, it's just,
Yeah, go ahead.
It's such a good theoretical modality because it's not just the eye movements. That's a big thing that I hit on. It's what I hit on in the blog that I shared with you. It's comprehensive. So we're looking at things in terms of the past as present, the past events that happen affecting us in the present. And so it's hard not to go back to that.
Right. So why don't you tell us a little bit more about what EMDR is, just in case anybody's listening is like, I don't even know what this thing is.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, it sounds like sci-fi stuff to a huge extent. It's a funky acronym, but it just stands for eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. It's a mouthful.
Just stands for that.
So it was actually, it's funny, the year I was born, 1987, is when...
Oh my gosh. Are you kidding?
Okay. Some days I feel older. That's when Francine Shapiro discovered it. So she was walking in a park and she discovered that her eyes began spontaneously going back and forth. And she felt better, and she was thinking about something negative at the time. So she thought there was something to it. I mean, literally, that's the story that's reproduced in her literature. Yep. And it's pretty inspiring. It's very serendipitous. So that's where it came from. She started studying it, and it's very fortuitous that she was in a position to do that, and actually, in a PhD program. So that was kind of how it got started, and from there, it's been refined. It was pioneered with veterans with PTSD. So that's where she really started out. So from the beginning, it's been a trauma-informed modality, and that's really where it has stayed. It's been adapted for depression, for OCD, really with a lot of things to do with anxiety. Yes. Because it's desensitizing the emotional vividness of those triggers. Right. So that's what I mean, and that's what has the most research behind it. So the eye movement, it's funny, Shapiro has actually gone on record and said, if I could rename EMDR from that name, I would rename it reprocessing therapy, which it like, what
Way
is it?
Better.
RT.
Way
Yes,
better,
very short. Very short, RT, right? So that's kind of how I think about it, is it's a reprocessing therapy. But so the eye movement is where it started in terms of what we call the bilateral stimulation. Again, very multi-syllabic words here, but it's been supplemented with, there's tones, which those don't have as much research behind them as there's hand stimulators that go back and forth and clients can tap on their legs. But for me, I'm a research nerd. I'm a stickler. The most research goes into eye movements. So that's kind of the gold standard in the research paradigms, and it's what I tend to err on, that side.
Yeah.
I do most of it. Yeah.
Do you, I'm just curious, do you actually use your hands, or do you have a light bar, or what do you usually use?
Well, I don't have a light bar because I haven't dropped
you
the
need
500.
a light bar. You need a light bar.
I do. You know, getting a hand workout like that all the time isn't that fun. Yeah, I know. Get buff.
Or tennis elbow, one of the two.
Tell me about it. Yeah. But so I've got some hand stimulators that actually have lights on them, so clients can hold them and look back and forth. Those were cool. That's from Neurotech Scan or Neurotech. Sorry, the company that does the little peripherals. So those I use quite a bit, and I use those for a specific reason too. Is that I don't touch clients, right? So some therapists will actually, and I've seen videos, like some very acclaimed EMDR therapists who I look up to, like famous ones, will tap on clients' knees. Those videos were recorded a few years ago. I wouldn't do that now. I wouldn't advise anyone to do that. So but it's very, very grounding and centering for clients with trauma to be aware of their bodies, to have tactile stimulation. So I have the hand buzzers that do that, and they look at the lights. And so it's kind of a multi-sensory thing where it really keeps them in the present while they're going back. Because what we want, key to EMDR, is this idea of dual awareness. So awareness of what happened to you with an awareness that you're here, you're safe, it's not happening now. So it's really re-encoding that memory. So that's another thing, is your bilateral stimulation choice is really important, especially, so my caseload is really a lot of people with complex PTSD. So you want to have stuff that's very grounding. Anyway, I went on a tangent there.
No, you didn't. It's so fascinating, and it's fun for me because, you know, I'm in solo practice right now, and I'm the only one there at this point that does EMDR. So to have someone else to talk to that's talking about different ways of using the, you know, whether the pulsars or the eye movements or whatever. I ditched the arm thing years ago when I got my light bar, and most people come into my office and they're like, what's that thing over there? And I'm like, it's like Kit on Knight Rider. Of course, you know, you were just born when Kit the Knight Rider was out.
Oh.
You don't even know what I'm talking about.
I do. Hey, I know that. Yeah. Because funny thing, I've wanted to make my own light bar. And so it'll be like, that's the Kit scanner thing is what comes up when you search for that kind of stuff online. But anyway, that's funny. People see that and they're like, what are you going to do to me?
My husband always goes, how much shock therapy did you do today? And I'm like, it's not shock therapy, you know?
See, that's funny. That's funny. Because I've had clients ask me if the hand stimulators are going to shock them. And I'm thinking, wow, that's some trauma. I mean, for one thing, I would never do that anyway. For another thing, it's unethical.
Exactly.
So anyway, just those two things. But yeah, it matters. The way you apply the stimulation. And here's another thing. Can I get on to another popular EMDR myth?
Yeah, please do.
So one of the popular myths is, and I've had clients tell me they've had this done to them, which is horrifying. They'll be told, just sit and look at the light and think about your trauma. No. For one thing, there's no check-ins with that. You're not being guided thoroughly. EMDR is just as much a relational therapy as it is the eye movement. Really more so. It's all about the relationship, because you're visually watching how a client reacts while you're processing with them. And so if you notice them their pupils start to dilate, if you notice some parasympathetic freeze responses, you really want to pull back. So it's a real dance with EMDR. That's another thing I like about it, is it's perfectly balanced between the left brain logical elements of the protocol, which are very regimented, and then the right brain creativity that you need as a therapist. It doesn't err on one side or the other too much, which I think some therapies can. It's empirically valid, which, I mean, with people who've been through severe trauma, you can't just go off and do whatever you want. And so, And
you can't just process their trauma and let them be, you know?
Absolutely not.
that's part of it too for me is often, I mean, and you know which clients can tolerate things better than others, you know, but you can't just leave someone in a traumatic state and let them walk out of your office. And I do know that happens sometimes, you know.
Well, yes. And
Mm-hmm.
see, that's, I really tend to be safe than sorry on that. So I at least give, all right, let your audience know about this. This is a good segue. There's 8 phases to EMDR. There's preparation, there's history taking, and treatment planning, which in and of itself is all about getting a good baseline of where the client is. And you're really finding out what happened to them as far as they're comfortable talking about it. Mm-hmm. What you want what the touchstone event is that really contributed to their negative self-image. It's usually something further in the past, not always, especially not for just single episode trauma clients, which are rarer than those that have been systematically right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, right.
So then preparation, where you teach them containment, complex, state change skills, right? Yes. Change your emotional state. And then you start getting into the meat of it of, okay, phase 3, the actual elements of the protocol, asking about the memory and all the questions that go with that. Then desensitization, installation, body scan, debriefing, and reevaluation. So obviously everybody doesn't have to remember that. I'm just going through it because all those phases, those are 8 phases, and only phase 4 is what people sometimes think of as EMDR, right? So it's this whole framework that often gets condensed and folded into one phase. And with complex trauma, EMDR is amazing because it may not leave the prep phase. You may be teaching people how to contain their emotions for months or years, and that's okay because they may have never learned. And as adults, it takes longer to learn that.
Right. And it's funny because all those phases, like you can finesse your way through those phases while you're building a relationship with your client, so it's not like I'm doing phase 1 right now, everybody. So, and now I'm going to head into phase 2, it kind of rolls together. It's very synergistic, when you're doing it in a rapport building relationship type state. And I was just going to say this too. And this is a little funky, I guess. As of late, I've been using a yoga therapist to help with resource development. So she helps with mindfulness and body and all of that around trauma. It's pretty fascinating. So she gives them a lot of skills that they can do before EMDR processing and after to help re-regulate. It's really pretty amazing.
Damn. Yeah. You'll have to give me some cheat sheets of that stuff. That's pretty good.
Damn, that's going to be the quote I'm going to use for you.
That's fine. That's fine. Most of my clients know that I have a pretty good sense of humor, so that would not shock them at all. Nope.
Exactly.
Well, it's funny you get into that stuff and you get into the polyvagal theory, that idea of getting people into that myelinated ventral vagal response, myelinating the actual vagus nerve, right? So just for the people out there, just helping you to learn better. Instead of going from fight or flight, you're going into that social engagement response. And so when you teach yoga, that, Bessel van der Kolk would be proud, the great author of The Body Keeps the Score.
Love that.
He's a very severe older gentle. I love him. He's great. Well, it's one of the only books I've seen on Amazon with a 5-star rating, by the way.
Oh, really?
Which is like book. The unicorn rating. So it's usually 4.5 even on the really good one. So that tells you something there. But he recommends yoga, Tai Chi. I know some people really swear by Reiki, energy stuff. Yep. So yoga is great for that. And you're really reclaiming your body. That's the biggest thing I would say. And when you can reasonably take that awareness of your own bodily states without getting into the past, then you're really ready for processing. Otherwise, it's just like you're going to get lost in that maze and you're going to get disconnected. And worst case scenario, you're not going to trust your therapist or EMDR again. And that's a shame. And I've heard of that happening. And, it's not ideal at all. EMDR is a powerful tool.
It's more powerful than people think. And the whole trusting of the therapist thing is so important. I've had some people that have come to me and they're like, I've already tried EMDR. I don't want to do it. It
Right.
dysregulated me. I'm out.
Right.
I'm whatever. And I'm like, well, yeah, okay. How about we try something different,
Yeah.
and you go a little
Yeah.
slower and, kind of go at the client's pace. And I think one of the myths, and I don't know that you wrote about this one. If you did, let me know. One of the myths that I hear is that, it's a myth and then it's not. EMDR is faster. It
Oh, yeah.
yes. Well, let's talk about that. What do you think about that when I say that? EMDR is faster.
Faster than what? Regular
Right.
therapy?
Exactly. Yeah. I don't know.
Well, that's a great question. Um, I would kind of give a facetious cop-out answer to the question. I would say it can be, because if you have something like, let me give you an example. If you have something like a sexual assault or some other event where you have a really well-intentioned therapist who's just doing straight up talk therapy and processing it that way, it may take a while. With EMDR, once you get started with desensitization, so it may end up the talk therapy takes a certain amount of time and then the EMDR takes the same amount of time, but what's going on in those spans is going to be different. So with EMDR, you may be prepping for longer, but then the actual work, the actual desensitization really speeds things along. And it's like you go from a SUD score, so a distress score of 10, down to like a 3 even in one session. Someone remembers, oh, wait a minute, I survived this, or I talked to my friend right afterward and she really comforted me. So I've had things occur where clients who've been in therapy for years and I've been like their third or fourth therapist, we've made more progress in a shorter amount of time because they were well resourced coming into it. They had high intelligence, high ego strength, so the degree for reality testing. If they have that going into therapy with me, it progresses quickly. But if you're really reconstructing people's personality and their ability to feel safe, then it's probably going to take about as long as other therapeutic modes. So it really depends on the functioning of your client from the beginning, is my answer to that.
I think that's a fair answer. And I do think that sometimes people come for EMDR because we want a quick fix,
right?
And it's building a reputation of it's fast, it's faster. And I'm like, it is and it isn't,
right. Right.
It just depends.
I just thought of something.
Yeah.
For single episode trauma, if someone had like a car accident or something occur like that, it's faster. But if someone is wanting to reconstruct their safety in the world and they've never had a positive relationship in their life and they're an adult, then it still takes time.
Right.
So it's like Socrates when he went to the oracle and he knew he was unwise, but that made him the wisest man. So when you have a client who's like, I know it will take a while and be hard work, they'll probably progress pretty well because they have that awareness.
Right.
So, and that's the ticket really, is what is your awareness? What is your expectations? Do you look to something? In general, we can get into some personality dynamics of if you're looking for a quick fix, what have you probably tried before? How much work are you willing to put into it? And, I'm not judging anyone. I'm just saying there's a maturity level that if someone comes to me and they're like, listen, I'm ready to do the work, I'm ready to do this, I'm ready to do that, they're probably ready. And barring any kind of other stuff that should be screened for during the treatment planning phase, they're probably a really good candidate.
Right. Let's see. So I know you're so passionate about EMDR and I absolutely love it. What is it that you really love about EMDR?
Well, that's a great question. So where do I start? So one of the big things I like, to be totally honest with you, is I like that there's structure to it. So my personality, my energy, just most about me is very spontaneous. And I think as therapists, we usually are, right? A lot of people have the ENFP personality type. Mine is ENTP, so I got a little more of the cognitive part. But I think as therapists, we have to be mindful of how we're spending our time. Are we giving clients the most bang for their buck, literally and proverbially? So EMDR allows for creativity, but it's structured. So you know where you're going. There's a clear itinerary there, but it allows for so much freedom within that. And usually therapies fall on one side or the other. In my own experience, a lot of them do. So I think straight up CBT is awesome. It's beautiful. it's not for me. I don't do that with clients. And a lot of them have done it. And CBT has amazing benefits. A lot of my clients, though, have that dysregulation that Bessel van der Kolk talks about, where they need limbic system therapy. So we can't just talk to the frontal lobe. We have to, in essence, talk to and reprogram their limbic system, the subcortical part. And we know that things like EMDR, and shout out to your yoga person, yoga, are really good at that. And so that's another thing I love about it, is it's very body focused without being weird or bizarre. Right. It's not rebirthing therapy. It's not something that's going to get you sued as a therapist. Right. It's totally ethical, and it goes deep. So, you know, and one of the other things I love is how unbelievably good it is at even helping people to develop new personality characteristics like assertiveness. So I've got a client who, he was just telling me, when he gets haircuts, he usually lets the barber do what he or she wants to, right? He kind of has a general crew cut kind of haircut he comes in for, obviously not what I've got going on, but he goes in and they maybe want to do some extra stuff because it's like one of those full service barbershop places. Kind of that was kind of interesting to hear. But, you know, he had the actual courage to say, here's what I want. And he tells me, he says, you know, I know it's something small. And I said, you know what? It's not, because you slowly over time learn that your voice didn't matter. So now you're slowly in those awesome small moments learning that it does matter. Right. And so we talked about that. And that's what happens with EMDR. You start to notice these personality changes that ripple out. And it's very awesome. So the whole reason I called it the Trauma Matrix in my title, for one thing, that's a presentation I had that drew on a lot of matrix terminology. So it's this idea that the trauma is the matrix, right? Why? Because it's these sensory experiences, these sights, smells, sounds, things that when you hear them, it triggers you into this past state that it's real to your body, it's real to your mind, but objectively it's not. So it's much like the Matrix in the movie. And when you get unplugged from it with EMDR, the therapist has to be masterful in doing that. You have to recognize that it's a very jolting experience to lose that sense that trauma defines you. But when the therapist is good at unplugging the client, then the client becomes like Neo and can go back into those memories with the ability to change them, to recognize they aren't real, to play around with them more, like when Neo flies around and does all his badass stuff. It's like that. And so you start to get more and more control over your mind, like Neo does within the Matrix.
That's so awesome. I want you to be my therapist. You're cool.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, listen, being a cool therapist is a good niche.
Totally. I knew you were cool when you first put out your logo and everyone blasted you for it except me. I'm like, that's cool. That's what you need to do.
Wait a minute. Let's talk a little bit about that for your audience. So What happened was the logo, it was a fox face and it was very stylized. And it was kind of,
I loved it.
Well, and somebody said it wasn't professional. And listen, you know what? That's okay. And I actually have played around with it a lot more. That wasn't the final design. I just like to play around with it. And for one thing, you can do kind of different logo campaigns and do different pictures and things. You love the marketing part of the job. Yeah. So actually, I made it with Canva. And I was listening to you on your last podcast with that really cool lady with the awesome name. What was her name? What was it?
Alita?
Yeah, that lady.
Yeah.
So I listened to that podcast and you were talking to her. Actually, I watched the Facebook video. You were talking about something and saying that you get caught up in the business side of things and stuff. And I was like, yeah, I understand that. So my good friend Jessica Sands, let me give her a plug because she was someone who was a mentor.
Yeah.
She's a consultant, which is what I'm going toward. But she loved the logo. And I just thought, okay, well, you know what? My niche is going to be my niche. I have a lot of people who love cutting edge stuff. You know how valuable it is. Yes. We got a lot of therapists who don't believe in that stuff and who we'd be lucky if they knew how to use a fax machine or a pager. So
you're definitely right. I tell my husband this all the time. I said, therapists, it's time that we evolve. You know, we have to start evolving. We can't sit and do the same thing that was done 100 years ago and expect it to work, you know?
Right.
We have an audience that's in social media. We have a young audience. You're a young therapist. Like, come on, folks. But that's exactly why. This is why I liked Jeremy. I was like, you know what? It was all about your logo, man. That's all I got to say.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I'm probably going to have it be that play button that's a fox's head for a while. Anyway. Back to the EMDR. This is too fun. I love doing this kind of stuff.
We will do it again, and hopefully it'll work on the Facebook Live, so don't worry about that.
Somebody who gave me a shout out is my mentor now, my current mentor, Ariel Schwartz. So let me plug her book.
Please do.
But wait. Yeah, I've got the book here. It's EMDR Therapy and Somatic Psychology. So Ariel Schwartz is a therapist, a psychologist here in Boulder. I'm actually in Denver, but she's in Boulder. And so her book is absolutely amazing, and it addresses a lot of the somatic, obviously it's in the title, bodily elements of EMDR. And her co-author, Barb Mayberger, who does the Mayberger Institute here in Denver. I mean, they're both really awesome, and I've met both of them. And obviously Ariel, I meet regularly. I'm actually going up to do a consultation group with her tomorrow. So she's where I get a lot of my energy for it too, because her book compiles so much stuff that when I was initially doing presentations on EMDR in the body, I had to go to different sources, and I was ordering obscure books on Amazon, and now it's just in one place. So, and another book that I drew from a lot is the EMDR Therapy Primer by Barbara Hensley. So that's another good book. If you really have those two books, you're set if you've obviously got the basic training. And for the audience out there that is interested in receiving EMDR, make sure that your therapist at least has some peripheral awareness of the thinkers in EMDR and stays up to date on the stuff, because there's too much interesting stuff going on to not have somebody working with you who's aware of it. And it's just fun, right? It's fun to hear about the new exercises, the new interventions, the imaginary, that sounds bad, but the imagery stuff. There's just so much to it that it never gets old if you're doing it right.
There's one thing I do want to talk about, because also within the industry, and this is good for clients to know too, there's a difference between being level 1, level 2, and being certified.
Yes.
And having a consultant. And it annoys me to no end, because I'm a consultant, and so many people that have gone through level 1 say they're certified, and they're not.
Oh,
they're not. you
no,
know?
Absolutely not. And part of this is a terminology issue. So we've got this issue with, if you're an EMDR therapist, if you've had level 1, level 2 basic training, and you've had the 10 hours of supervision. I believe it's 10. But you're an EMDR therapist, you can put it on your business card. Okay? Right. That's it. You still, if you want to practice EMDR, are supposed to get, I think, monthly supervision, by the way. Isn't that right?
I don't know if that's right or not.
Well, I think you still, I don't think you're off. I don't think you're off a leash yet. I don't think you can go out and just do it. If you're so I'm certified, which is the kind of the intermediary level there. So I don't technically have to get supervision as long as I stay up to date with EMDRIA and get my continuing education units, which is fun anyway. So, but I want to be a consultant. Now, what's that? Somebody like yourself that can actually teach EMDR in course form. I mean, you can do everything. You're kind of the Jedi master, whereas I'm the knight, and the first level is like the apprentice, right?
Yes.
So that's real, and that's actually a really good metaphor for it.
That is a really good metaphor. I really like it.
There you go. So because it's very much that when you've reached master level, if you're a knight, you can go around and kick butt and do all that crap. But you still have some governing. You're not out there teaching the way, really. But as an EMDR consultant, you are basically bestowed with the great authority of EMDRIA to go out. That's what I want to do. Yeah. I would teach it like this. Yeah. Cool EMDR.
Yeah, right. We should just call it cool EMDR. That's awesome. I wanted to put that out there because I think
you're right.
People need to do their due diligence, and
Yeah.
therapists need to present themselves correctly, and clients need to understand the difference. And I'm not saying that just because you're level 1 or level 2 trained that you're not good in EMDR, but you can't say that you're certified. And I think clients need to understand that as well. But I do know that there's confusion around that a little bit.
Well, yeah, and I've never met anyone who who intentionally misrepresents themselves EMDR wise. So I think it's an issue with the terminology, and you have to learn it. You have to learn that certified does not mean the basic training. And it really, what it comes down to is experience. So you have to have, I think it's 50 hours with 25 different, 50 sessions with 25 different clients. Isn't that it? I'm not going to quote it. I'm not going to quote it. Let's not do that.
I've had consultant status now for 7 years, I think.
That's awesome.
I don't know.
Yeah,
so I don't even know what it is anymore.
That's fine. It's what it is it's a metric of essentially, are you out there competently practicing it? And you have to have mentors that are willing to sign off and say, this person knows what they're doing. So really, if you can get a certified person, and you have complex trauma, that I would say is the gold standard. And I hate to say it because, well, I don't hate to, obviously I'm saying it, but it's for people like me, how do you, when I was starting out, how do you learn if people just go to someone certified, right? But for complex trauma, you want to make sure that you're getting someone who has been around the block a little bit.
Right.
Especially if that's not their bread and butter. So I had the privilege of being really exposed to that world from the beginning with EMDR, and having mentors around me who used EMDR who could tell me, okay, here's what to do, here's what not to do. Not everyone has that, especially in private practice where you're working with people who may be generally higher functioning. And so when you get someone who really needs support, if they're not really experienced with it, there may be less help offered there.
Mm-hmm.
Potentially.
Is the majority of your practice EMDR?
Yeah, that's what I do. I mean, so I still work at an agency right now. I'm wanting to get my private practice off the ground. So Fox EMDR Therapist is my brand. I'm still at an agency. So, but I tend to get referred people who are appropriate for EMDR. So that's a lot of what I do. Now, again, let's play with the language of it. Even if it's not people who go through all the 8 phases, I approach all my clients with that treatment planning, determining what past events maybe shaped their personality. So I'm still taking that EMDR perspective into every session, whether or not we get to desensitization. With all my clients almost, I use containment and calm place.
Yeah.
Or light stream is a good one. It's perfect. I actually have a lot of clients who have really enjoyed light stream, especially ones who have had some trauma in the past that was physical, because light stream involves imagining a healing light coming into your body.
Yeah.
So that's a fun fact for anyone out there. Light stream's a good exercise. There's 2. I could go on and on about these. Those are good in of themselves. And what you can do is have that be something you do toward the beginning of session and say, well, how did that feel? What is this like? Okay. And then you judge that and see, okay, is somebody ready for EMDR now? Or do we need to do a little more prep? What's going on? And another thing is, someone who is in basic training is usually supposed to just use the standard protocol, right? It's called that for a reason. But when you get more experienced, you can use the different protocols like pendulation, or what is it? I'm talking about Jim Knight's work. He's very big on the method CPOS, constant installation of present orientation and safety. So imagine, okay, go to that negative event, okay, come back to the present, negative event again, et cetera, et cetera. So even things like that are available. So if you think that EMDR could never help what you've been through, it's just too painful, chances are it really could, and there's an adaptation out there that somebody's thought of.
That's right. Because there's a lot of different adaptations out there.
Right.
Yeah, and I think it's just a matter of getting a therapist who is open and available to trying something new. Not not afraid of it, you know. And I always say there's no right way and there's no wrong way to do this as a client. So
absolutely.
yep.
Oh, this gets even better because it was a real shame is some of my colleagues who are extremely intelligent have been perfectionistic about it, not wanted to get into EMDR, been too afraid to start it. And you know what? These people have been through so much typically that and I want to be careful in how I say this, you're not going to harm them more. And that's one of my supervisors back in the past who's very experienced with EMDR said, at some point you meet clients who, if anything, it's going to help with EMDR. You can't go wrong because they've tried everything else. So what are you waiting for? Now, you want to make sure you give them that stop signal. You let them know that you'll be checking in.
They're in control. That they're in control.
Absolutely. Yeah. But I've seen timidity and fearfulness be much more of an impediment to EMDR therapists than them rushing in.
I agree. And the other part of this is not having faith in the client that they're strong enough to do EMDR. And that's super annoying to me sometimes too, because I think that comes from projected fear from the therapist. Like
it absolutely does.
You know, so we have to empower the clients to be able to attack their trauma. That's why they're in front of you. And maybe you need to do more resourcing with them, but that still is part of EMDR, you know? So it's super important because I've heard that before with other therapists, you know, like, oh, I would never do that with them because they're just basically too fragile. And I'm like, but they don't want to live like this anymore, you know, like who does, you know?
So what are you doing with the client then? Exactly. I mean, what are you, okay. Yeah, I won't go down there. But here's, I mean, just to inform of how ridiculously pliable EMDR is. I mean, you've got a book by the great UK psychiatrist Paul William Miller called EMDR for Schizophrenia and Other Psychoses. I own the book because I absolutely found it fascinating that a book was coming out about that. And he uses EMDR to target the emotions associated with the delusions. So you're targeting how upsetting it is, and hallucinations too. So you're targeting how fear-inducing it is. I mean, that's amazing. And this guy has standardized a way of looking at it. And I mean, I thoroughly recommend the book. It was great. I got it as a Christmas gift, which shows you just how interested I am in therapy stuff. Exactly. I don't know if that's inspiring or sad. It's inspiring. I mean, it was great. Well,
it's a little sad, Jeremy.
Well, I mean, when you consider, I got a lot of other good stuff that year too. So
okay, all right. It's kind of like, it was just a stocking stuffer.
Here's a new way to help people. Yay! I don't have to come up with all of it. Right, standing on the shoulders of giants.
Right.
Is what I would say about that.
Yes. All right. Is there anything else you'd like to talk about? I'm sure we could talk about this for a very long time. So I might have to have you on again as a guest again, because I love talking about EMDR.
Yeah. Have me on do like a late show type format where you have where I'm the witty sidekick making wisecracks about the other guest. Like I'll sit on the couch and like have my coffee.
The color commentator.
Yeah, like Andy Richter from Conan.
Let's do it.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Why don't you bring on another therapist and we'll have that conversation between the three of us. That'd be hilarious.
You know, we need to get Mayberger or Schwartz on here because Ariel would be hilarious. She'd be down with that, I think. I don't know. I can't speak for her, but she's awesome and she does a lot of social media stuff. So let's see. I would say EMDR, look at it. If you've heard that it's not researched enough, that's wrong. I mean, the World Health Organization endorses it. It fits with almost every other therapy out there, even solution focused. So it can be very bump, very time limited. It doesn't have to be your worst trauma first. It can be something in the present. It can be a future template. So if you're too scared to do the worst trauma, have no fear. You can ease into it. You can get your sea legs and do some less threatening targets. I mean, really, any fears about EMDR besides current brain issues like regular seizures, okay, that's a no-go for the eye movement.
Right.
Anything but that is generally there's a workaround or there's an answer to, right? And even the seizure thing, if you talk to a neurologist and they give the go ahead, it's not a rule out. But that's just a little trickier, and I don't want to speak for the physiological side of that. But I mean, it's an exciting therapy, and if your only rule out is intense seizures, then I think that's pretty good standard. Oh, and it's not hypnosis. People say, "Oh God, am I going to be in a trance? Am I going to be hypnotized as eye movement?" No, no, no. You're actually, if anything, more aware because you're going into these neural networks that you've maybe suppressed for a while, and you're cleaning them out, and you're recognizing that it doesn't control your life anymore. So no, and I've answered that question probably, no joke, like times. Well, yeah, like I was going to say 100, but yeah, let's go with a million.
A million.
Of is it hypnosis? And I say no, and here's why. You'll never be in a trance. You'll remember what happened.
Yep.
You're in control, and we do check-ins regularly. So even if a client closes their eyes and they just use the hand buzzers, which again, I like to do eyes open, but there's check-ins. So it's not, you're never going to be left out in this trance world. You know, and in popular culture, hypnosis gets a bad reputation anyway. So that doesn't do us any favors. So there you go. There's my EMDR bullet points.
All right. Round. Speed round. I love it. Okay. So how can people get in touch with you?
Well, email me at foxemdrtherapy@gmail.com. Okay. I always check that email. I've got it on my phone. Follow me on Twitter. Use my handle at FOXEMDR, because I'm on there too. My website, I bought the domain name Fox EMDR Therapy, but don't get on there yet, folks who are listening to this in 2018, because it's not up and running. It's a blank page. I got to get that going. I want to make it look really good. So right now, email and Twitter are the best ways to get in touch with me. And I love to answer questions about it. Again, what I'm really looking for right now is people that I can talk to about consultation. So, and I know you're out of state. I'm in Colorado. You are in Wisconsin. Yes. Okay. I remember that. So even people there, if they want to do let's not do Sky. There's some very good HIPAA compliant supervision video things out there. But it's ethical to offer that according to EMDRIA over state line. So I'd love to get in touch with people who want to talk about EMDR, want to do consultation, because I want to be a consultant and I'm on my way. I'm under the great Ariel Schwartz, for God's sake. So
that's awesome. And here's a shout out to Ariel Schwartz. Let's get her on.
We'll see how that goes. I can't speak for her, but I know she's a blast.
All right. Well, it'd be super fun.
Oh my gosh. I think it would.
All right. And I will put information on those books that you mentioned. EMDR Therapy and Somatic Psychology, The Body Keeps the Score, and the EMDR Therapy Primer. I'll put links to those in the show notes at the bottom so everyone has it, and your contact information. Yes. And that is a wrap. So thank you so much for coming on the show, Jeremy. It was super fun.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And we will do it again. All right.